as we've talked about earlier, another one of the challenges that you set for yourself was writing in the second person. What did you have to take into account in order to do that?
Well, writing in second person, I deliberately tried to adopt a tone that's different. When you're writing in first person, you can have the character be whatever personality they want to be. If it's it's a smooth talking guy, or if it's somebody who's very analytical, or if it's somebody with a sense of humor, or somebody who gets very angry quick, you can bring that out as a writer. In second person, it's like, I tried to get a view of like somebody's narrating your life. So it would be things like, you walk into the theater and take a seat. They're up on the stage already. The guy's rambling. You don't know what he's saying. This happens to you a lot, doesn't it? And it puts a voice in your head. It's almost as if somebody's watching you and just commenting on it. So the person's tone or attitude, I always had to keep in there. I couldn't get involved. I couldn't get passionate. I couldn't say, that was a wrong decision. You could have done it this way. I didn't want to get preachy. I had to make sure I just remained aloof. So you've decided to do this. Interesting. Sort of like, whatever you do is fine by me. I'm just narrating. And it was very hard to keep myself from getting... So when there's exciting action scenes where I would normally build up the tension, I have to say things like, the first line of the book is, you're surprised at all the blood. You look over at him. His face is white as his shirt. He's surprised too. Just matter of fact. And to maintain that tone, I found I would write whole chapters and go back and say, no, too passionate. I've got to become I've got to be disengage and float over the story and just speak at it that way, which kind of is a problem because is anybody here from Blackstone Audio, the one who did the audiobook of this? The view that good, because they did the audiobook, and so as I explained, that was the voice I wanted. You know, you're surprised at all the blood. That kind of you walk into the room, everyone hates you there. You know, and just very, very common. I get the voice for this thing. And you put it on, and the first thing comes out is, you're surprised at all the blood. It's like, where did this come from? So one of the hard parts for me as a writer was to get that aloof announcer voice, which they totally changed their mind when they turned it into an audiobook.
Excuse me. I haven't read a whole lot of young adult, but what I have read, I've noticed that the central protagonist tends to be sort of a cipher, which I think helps the children get into the book a little bit. A lot of things happen to the character, but they're a little bit of a blank slate. And I think second person does that really well for you, in that you're going past the idea of creating a character that this person becomes. It's actually the person in the book.
Right. But some people have a hard time with that because some of the reviewers said, well, you is written in second person. You are a 15-year-old boy, but I'm not. It's like, well, it's a story. Let go, just for a couple pages, and just try to get into that. So some people could not get past the second person, and some reviewers have said it can't be done. The only thing that should be done in second person are cookbooks. You take 2 eggs and you mix it this way. Other than that, nobody should ever write in second person. So.
I think you already talked about challenges of writing for young adult. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about becoming a vegetarian.
Well, that was a bet. I was teaching at School Without Walls in the city, and I had a female student, Dina Zielinski. She's now the owner of Plastic. It's a store in the arts, neighborhood of the arts. It sells little Japanese figurines, and it's a cool store. Check it out. It's called Plastic. Anyway. Dina was a vegetarian, and I used to make fun of her for being a vegetarian just because I was a jerk. And so I would make fun of her and finally one day she said, you can't be a vegetarian. And I said, why not? And she said, you don't have the willpower. And I said, really? And I said, I bet you I could stop eating meat. She said, it's not just meat. It's meat, chicken, and fish. Anything with eyes and runs away. I said, I could do that. And she said, really? And I said, as a matter of fact, I will never eat meat, chicken, or fish again from this moment on. She said, all right. Came home and told Rose, I'm a vegetarian. And of course, for these high, lofty goal of to tell that kid that I could win the bet. And so from that moment on, I ate, that was it. It was over with. Rose eventually became a vegetarian by default, so it was just easier that way. And so we went for 7 years without eating. Not once did I break, not once did I slip, and never had anything to eat I stayed that way. And then we landed a job teaching in Kuwait. And I was taking Arabic lessons from a friend here in town, and she said, Charles, I have a hard enough time understanding the fact that you're a vegetarian. You're going to go to Kuwait. You're going to know people already from my family who are in Kuwait. You're going to meet friends. They're going to invite you over to their house. They're not going to understand when you say, I don't want meat. It's just not going to click with them. So you should become. So I said, all right, to be culturally sensitive, I'll become go back to eating meat. So we came home, Rose, I'm not a vegetarian anymore. Well, she kept up being a vegetarian for a couple of weeks and then came back to the dark side with me. And sure enough, we go to Kuwait and we're invited over to somebody's house. And one of the first things he says to us, a Palestinian guy that was related to my teacher, he says, you are coming to my house. And on the phone he says, do you eat meat? And I said, yes, we eat meat. Meat. I said, yeah, we eat meat. You like meat. Your wife will eat meat too. I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay, I thought maybe somebody said something to him. Well, I didn't know this, but in the Arab world, beef is beef. Meat is goat. The other gray meat. So unless you're a big fan of goat, coming off after 7 years of not eating meat and then eating goat, it took a while for the body. And of course, because we are the honored guest, you will get the head. Oh, gosh. And of course, they don't have dogs in the home in Arabic houses because the dogs, inside the house is just not considered right. So there's like nobody to. Of course, now Rose is flipping everything onto my plate. So it's like, oh, yes. Yeah, so it was stupid, but there you go. I'm kind of noted, we're kind of noted, well, I shouldn't say we're. I'm sort of noted for picking up unusual things and then not letting them go. For example, every day for the last 15 years, my wife and I have taken our picture holding the date. Every time I take a shower, I have to put a quarter in a jar. I mean, it's just all these really ridiculous things that are cries for help, but people just,
don't want to.
Yeah, so